Hey there, Cheesemeisters, and welcome back to the Peach Pod After Dark. I'm Jeff, and these two soggy sons of bitches are Pete and Delmar. And joining me on the other end of the internet is my host.
I'm Leslie, and I've spoken my piece and counted to three.
She counted to three. So this week, Cheesemeisters, we are watching Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? 2000 Odyssey set in the Depression era. Salute to that old-time music masterpiece by the Coen brothers, starring George Clooney, John Turturro, Tim Blake Nelson, John Goodman, Holly Hunter, Chris Thomas King, Charles Durning, and a whole bunch more people. God, I love this movie. We are watching this in conjunction with season 3, episode 19, Back in the High Life Again. And our spelling connection is Ulysses Everett McGill himself. George Clooney did an episode of Hotel. Yeah. So, as I say, I love this movie. This is the Coen brothers' follow-up to The Big Lebowski. So Lebowski was like 97. This was 2000. So this was the next one that they did, which is interesting if you think of John Turturro going from the Jesus to Pete, and John Goodman going from Walter Sobchak to Big Dan Teague. Just back to back. Like I love the way that they use actors over and over again. Like people that they love working with, they bring back people who can do the thing they do, and deliver it. And because they've worked with Turturro and John Goodman a bunch. Like we've now done three Coen Brothers movies, and all of them have starred John Goodman. To one degree or another. Turturro was not in Raising Arizona, but he was in Lebowski and this. And he was also in the name of the movie that I'm totally blanking. Fuck, where did it go? Barton
I will
Fink.
say, I will say, as an actor, we get a little envious of people who have the job security to get to continuously work with someone either this
Sure.
big. Or, I used to joke all the time when I lived in Portland that if you weren't getting work, just open a theater company, nonprofit, and cast your friends, because that's what a lot of people did. And like,
Yeah.
I can't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you need to network, kids.
Yeah.
Make it
And
better.
I mean,
Chat with people.
they find people who can do their thing, and then they're like, okay, bring them back. Like this is Clooney's first movie with them, but it's not his last. He does at least two more. He does uh the one with where he's got Clooney's thing is like in these movies he has a physical thing he's focused on. Like in this one, it's my hair. Um, he's a Dapper Dan man, and then he's got his teeth that he's focused on in the one about the divorces, Intolerable Cruelty.
Oh,
Yeah, which is not my favorite of theirs, but it
haven't
has
seen
some
it.
moments. And then he's in I'm so blanking on the names of all their movies today. What the fuck? This is
It's because
bad
it's
news.
Christmas Eve for
It is. Yeah.
us, not
It is
when you're
Christmas
hearing
Eve.
it.
Nope. Time Machine. Um anyway, and Holly Hunter being in Raising Arizona, and now this, like, it's just they just churn them, they bring them back, and I think what you get from that is you get people who can sink in to what they're doing and operate on the frequency of that particular movie. And this movie has a very specific frequency that it is on. And I've never seen anything that hums the way this one does in this particular old timey way.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, because you've seen this once, and you were telling me that your experience of seeing this before and Walter's experience are very specific. So, how
Yes.
and when did you see this movie?
We both saw it in school. I know I saw it specifically sixth grade when I didn't go on an overnight field trip to the
Interesting.
Indiana Dunes. Yeah,
Okay.
it is. I know, and I
You
just remember.
win.
I
I
think,
mean,
yeah, no, I
this is,
definitely did.
yeah.
I remember sitting in Clarksville Middle School library and laughing my head off at very odd moments of this
Hmm.
movie. Yeah.
Do you remember what thing? Because as we've discussed with Coen Brothers movies, like they tend to hit you in waves. Like there are things you get right away that you think are very funny. Like uh, the first time I saw Raising Arizona, I didn't really like it, but I loved the chase scene with all the dogs and the guy driving the car who can't turn the wheel, he just screams. Like that whole thing I thought was hilarious. When I first saw The Big Lebowski, the whole "shut the fuck up, Donnie" back and forth,
Yes.
like I thought that was great. Like that hit me right away. Um, so what about this did you landed for you the first time you saw
Uh, Damn, we in a tight spot.
it? Yep, in a
You
tight
know
spot.
why? That reminds me of in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, even though I
Uh
would
huh.
have seen this first, but it reminds me of the who are those guys?
Right.
Like repetition, baby.
Yeah. All
And
of The Big
also
Lebowski.
cursing. I was in sixth grade. I had just learned swearing and I was like, hee hee hee, hee, this is funny.
Yeah.
They're saying
Yep.
damn.
Yeah.
The next one is so stupid, and I can distinctly remember this kid, TJ Wilbert, giving me the look like, why are you laughing this loudly at this moment? Um, but it was after they've all passed out from the sirens, and
Uh huh.
we cut directly to Delmar's face. And I thought that was the funniest thing. And I was the only person laughing uproariously, and everyone turned their head to look at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Spitz?
That's so funny.
I
I love
know.
it. I love it. For me, it was so much the language of the movie and the way Everett talks and like the overly flowery delivery of everything he says. Like this movie landed on me like from the minute that like the the scene after they meet the blind seer where they're walking down, well first the I'm with you fellers, um I'm voting for yours truly, like that I thought was hilarious. And then they're walking down the road after that, and and Pete is like, well he said we would not reach the treasure on account of our obstacles. And but first they're like, how did he know all that? And George Clooney goes on and on, Everett, about how sometimes the blind have like their other senses are expounded, and it's not too far fetched to think maybe they can see into the future is what they're what they've expanded their senses. And after he said, well, he said we would not reach the treasure, and he goes, what does he know? He's just a blind old man.
I know.
I just lost it. I was like, God, that's so funny. He just takes everything and turns it towards his own advantage. Like whatever anybody says, he has the answer for. Um,
Yes.
even though his answer is crazy. So this is it's based loosely on the Odyssey. Um, Homer's epic poem of Odysseus's return from the Battle of Troy to get back to Ithaca, where his wife is, and she's surrounded by suitors. They're bona fide.
Yep.
Um, and he's got the ire of the gods against him, Odysseus, and but he also has some protection from the gods, and but he has to go through all these trials and tribulations in order to make his way to the treasure. And what you get in this movie. And also, I guess the other thing that I just sort of I knew that the title of the movie was based on something, um, but I couldn't remember what. So I did a little googling it up, and it's from a Preston Sturges movie. Have you seen any Preston Sturges movies?
I have not.
I've seen one or two, and they're funny as hell. And this one's based on Sullivan's Travels, and it's in that movie the protagonist is a director who wants to film a movie called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou."
Mhm.
So this film is maybe kind of the movie that the character in the Preston Sturges movie wanted to make, and it's about a guy who needs to get home to stop his wife from marrying um, Mr. Waltrip. Uh, but he's chained to Pete and Delmar, the two soggy sons of bitches, and they have to escape prison because they're both in jail working on the chain gang in Mississippi in the Depression. So, um, what I'm going to attempt to do here is what I attempted to do when we watched Octopussy, which is tell you what happens in this movie because there's a lot, and I wrote myself down some notes. Um, so we'll see how we go here. Um, so they escape and they try to hop on a train, um, looking to see if any of the fellas on board are smithies, or if not smithies per se, otherwise trained in the metallurgic arts before circumstances led them to a life of aimless wandering. Um, but then Pete trips, yanks them all out of the train,
Yep.
which is it's so funny. Um, and they're still on this train track, and they find themselves on a handcart pumped by a blind seer, who says to them, and I have the whole quote here because I think it's important, and I think it's hard to catch all of it when you watch it because you just don't hear everything he's saying, but he gives you the whole thing. He says, "You seek a great fortune, you three who are now in chains. You will find a fortune, though it will be not be the one you seek. But first, you must travel a long and difficult road, a road fraught with peril. Mm-hmm. You shall see things wonderful to tell. You shall see a cow on the roof of a cotton house. Oh, and so many startlements. I cannot tell you how long the road shall be, but fear not the obstacles in your path, for fate has vouchsafed your reward. Though the road may wind you, your hearts grow weary, still shall you follow them, even unto your salvation." So they're going to get there, but they got to go through some shit first. And so they stop at Pete's kin's house, the Hogswallops, um, where the missus has recently RUNNOFT, but not before leaving a mess of hairnets in Yombura, because Everett, he's a Dapper Dan man, and he has to do his hair treatments every night. And but good old Wash Hogswallop turns him into the police because there's this depression on, and I got to do for me and mine. Uh, but his son steals a car, sits on some phone books, straps a block to his foot, and drives into the burning barn where he grabs Pete, Everett, and Delmar, and they bust their way out.
They RUNOFFT.
RUNNOFT. And but then they kick the kid in the pants and send him back to mind his paw. And but the car is broke down, and so they need to go find a part for it. And they go to a general store, which is Geographic Oddity, 2 weeks from everywhere. That guy doesn't have the part, nor does he have Dapper Dan. He has Fop, but I don't want Fop. I'm a Dapper Dan man. And so they proceed on from there, knowing that they don't have a car. They got to keep trying, and they got 4 days to get to where the treasure is, 1,000,000.2, that is buried near where Everett's house was. That's soon going to be turned into a river or a lake because they're going to blow the dam, and it's all part of the works progress. It's all Depression era.
Oh, WPA
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. I don't think it's WPA. It might be because works progress. No, Works Progress was the one where they were building roads and stuff like that. Um, and that's what this is part of. And the future's coming, but if they don't get there, it's going to be buried under a river. Um, so they're in the woods eating some gopher. Um, well, Pete and Delmar eating gopher. They already had a full one. Ulysses is worried that a third of a gopher would merely arouse his hunger without tamping it down again. And they're passed by a bunch of people in white going down to the river. And Pete and Delmer get themselves saved. And they travel on down the road a little bit, and they meet a man standing at a crossroads. Tommy, who has just recently sold his soul to the devil. Robert Johnson style. Do you know Robert Johnson? Are you familiar with Robert Johnson?
I wasn't, but I was reading, 20 facts you don't know about Oh Brother Where Art Thou
Oh,
before this, and it mentioned how Tommy's character is based on Robert Johnson.
yeah. Robert Johnson was an amazing blues musician in the 1910s, 20s, who it is told went to the crossroads and sold his soul to the devil for the ability to play the guitar. And then Robert Johnson was killed by a jealous husband. So he only recorded 30 songs, and they're all like it's a double CD set that you can buy that has everything he ever recorded on it. And some of it's like a couple different takes of songs, but yeah, this definitely it's a tip of the hat to Robert Johnson. And Everett, Pete and Delmer just been saved, and you just sold your soul to the devil. I'm the only one here unaffiliated, spiritually speaking. And which turns out to be a real thing, I think, in the movie. But they travel on down the road, and they stop someplace and they sing into a can for $10 a person, and record their version of I'm getting all the other songs in my head, and not
I'm a man of constant sorrow.
Man of Constant Sorrow. God damn, I was like in the jailhouse now. Like all the
I
other
got you.
songs that they sing in the movie. I appreciate it. Yeah, they sing into a can and record. They do some, whoo, that's somebody good picking and a singing. And as they're leaving, they meet Pappy O'Daniel, who's the governor of Mississippi. He's fixing to mass communicate. He's not pressing the flesh, you dumb cracker. He ain't one at a time in it. And But Pappy O'Daniel is up against a formidable opponent in Homer Stokes, friend of the little man, who's going to sweep out the cronyism and the rascalism. He's a friend of the little man, so he travels the whole state with a broom and a midget. He ain't lying, and but there's trouble for Pappy. He's having trouble fighting that reform because you can't run on the reform as the incumbency. I'm glad your mother died in childbirth. She died at shame. Yeah. So they're sold out once more, but they're sleeping in the woods, so they're not burned up in the fire in the cabin or in the barn. And Tommy skedaddles. So then they further on down the road meet George Nelson, who does not like to be called Babyface, but he is on a robbing spree, 3 banks in one day. Not the livestock, George. Shoots those poor cows. Oh my god! When that car hits the cow, it is so violent. It is, and the thud. That is the worst part of the movie is the sounds that the bullets make when they're hitting that cow, the and then when the car hits the cow, it's just fucking brutal.
And thankfully, it's all CGI. Like,
Yeah,
I
no
didn't
cows were
think
harmed.
that they used any real cows. I kind of disassociated in that moment because I can't handle animals being hurt.
It's rough.
But I did read in that moment that they CGI'd that. But
Yeah.
apparently it was still so new and looked so real that I think animal abuse people like came at them.
I'm not surprised. It is jarring.
Yes.
The cow situation. Uh, then they find themselves drawn to the sirens in the water, who love them up and turn Pete into a horny toad. And when they wake up the next morning, Pete is gone. His clothes are still there, but a toad remains, which Delmar is certain is Pete, even though I'm not sure that's Pete.
Not sure that's Pete.
Of course it is. Look at him. And then they go and they're going to have a nice lunch where they meet Big Dan Teague, who hears the sound of that money. And Big Dan is a Cyclops and a Bible salesman, and takes them out, gets them all fed up, and then teaches them a lesson with a large tree branch upside the head.
Yes.
Steals all their money, and you've seen the last of Big Dan. And he squeezes. He's poor Pete.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they it's not really Pete. Which they find out when they I think they make it to this town where Homer Stokes, friend of the little man, is doing a rally, and his campaign manager, as it turns out, is Mr. Waltrip, who is the suitor of Penny, Ulysses Everett McGill's wife and mother of his now 7 children. I don't know if Everett struck you as a paterfamilias, but he definitely is a paterfamilias. Nope. Yeah, he has spread his seed.
No doubt.
Yeah. But the Warvey girls, who are the McGill girls, they gone back to Warvey after he got hit by that train. He's a suitor. So then Everett gets kicked out of the Woolworths. I never did know Everett. Was it just the one store, or was it all the Woolworths? And they go to the movies to meet. They just go to the movies. But while they're in the movies, all the prison gang comes back in, and Pete is among them. And he advises them, do not seek the treasure. To which Delmar replies, we thought you was a toad, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Makes no sense at all. So funny. But then they break him out of prison and find their way to a Klan rally, as one does.
God.
I know. Where there's a huge burning cross and basically the Ole Miss marching band wearing Klan outfits, just doing a whole routine.
It was a lot. Yeah,
it's kind of the synchronized movement of the Klan members is so funny and so weird. But they're fixing to have themselves a hanging, and poor Tommy, who never did nothing to these nice fellas, is about to get strung up. But but our 3 heroes step in to save the day. But Big Dan is there, and he's only half blind, but he does have a keen sense of smell, and he smells Dapper Dan, and chases them down and disrupts the whole saving thing. But they escape the crowd, try to use the Confederate flag as a missile.
Yeah.
Which Big Dan catches like this, which is impressive.
Yes.
Then they cut the chain holding the burning cross up and smush and burn Big Dan and a light. And they find themselves back at is it their rehearsal dinner? I'm not even sure what's going on in this private event that they
I think It was a Homer Stokes event.
But he wasn't even
I'm pretty
there.
sure.
It wouldn't have been a Homer event because Pappy's there too. Like they're
Oh,
both there,
fair.
and they're sitting up at the front, and maybe like I feel like it's a wedding related circumstance. Um, but they get up there, and little did they know that when they sang into that can, "Man of Constant Sorrow" became a hit across the state. And when the Soggy Bottom Boys got up on stage and commenced to singing it, the crowd went crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
Homer Stokes comes in, and he's a member of a secret society. I don't think I need to mention any names. Um, but these boys ain't even white. They's miscegenated, and he wants them arrested because they're fugitives. But the crowd doesn't want any part of this because this is the Soggy Bottom Boys, and they love this song. And you don't
Yeah,
get
we
in the
don't care.
way of fandom. And they literally run him out of town on a pine rail. And Pappy gets up on stage and does a little dance, which is amazing. That Charles Durning's dance is so great in this movie.
Yes.
He pardons the Soggy Bottom Boys, and and then he hires them as his as the men behind the throne, his advisors, which is a bold move.
Yeah.
And everything seems good until Penny counts to 3. She's not getting married without her wedding ring, which is in the roll top desk back at the house, which is getting ready to be buried under 9,000 hectares of water. So the boys head there and are met by the law, who got the tip that that's where they were going because Pete gave it up when he was being tortured.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all fixing to get strung up until the dam breaks, literally, and they escape once again. But not before Everett drops to his knees and prays for deliverance from this horrible fate.
Yes.
And everything's flooded. The cow's up on the roof. Tommy's riding a roll top desk. They find a ring. They have reached their treasure. There never was no 1,000,000.2. It was all just a ruse so that he could break up this wedding. He's a paterfamilias. And he still ends up with Penny, but maybe they aren't getting married because that ring, she needs that ring. She has counted to 3. And so they traveled. They have this whole odyssey, and they do get their treasure, even though it's not the one they sought. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of great music along the way.
Yes, there is.
That's what happens in this movie. I think I accurately described the plot of
You
Oh
did
Brother,
it.
Where Art Thou? Good for me. So how do you feel about this movie now that you're not 12? Watching it as a grown up, did you
like
get
it?
Did it land?
I'm not. I hate saying this. I'm not sure it landed with me. I liked it. I don't think I like it as much as you. I definitely don't like it as much as you. But I still liked it and enjoyed it. But like most Greek tales, it didn't really land for me.
Sure.
Again, super entertaining. I think taking any Greek or Roman mythology, you've got to put it in a modern context. Because I don't know, maybe for some people it does, but for me, it just doesn't land.
Yeah.
I've even the modernized version of Lysistrata I've seen was really rough.
Yeah.
And that's a cool story, but and I've just tossed my phone. But so yeah, I liked it. And that's where I leave it.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think you can watch this movie and not know anything at all about the Odyssey and still enjoy the story and enjoy the language and the jokes. Like it's just loaded, and the music, which is amazing. And but knowing like the little bits, because I saw a thing where it's like the Coens have said they never even read the Odyssey. They just sort of know it. Like they sort of, I got the gist of it. Which is why you don't have a faithful retelling. Like you've got the Cyclops, which is in the Odyssey, and which is in this. You've got the Sirens, which are in the
Mm-hmm.
Odyssey, and that are in this. Um, in the Odyssey, Circe turns Ulysses's men into pigs, and here Pete gets turned into a toad. Um,
You have
and
Poseidon in a way.
yeah, with all the water,
Uh-huh.
yeah, coming in at the end. And the like when they're trapped on Helios and they eat the livestock, and then in this one George shoots up the livestock.
Yeah.
You know, like they've got all of those bits, and then they've got him trying to get home to his wife who has a suitor instead of
Mm-hmm.
like many suitors, just the one. But they hang it on the Odyssey, but it's not. I mean, it's a road movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's these three guys trying to get from point A to point B and going through a bunch of shit on the way, and their shit is oddly specific and quite funny.
Yeah.
Um, but and you know, filled with I don't know, just the language. I just can't get over the language of this movie because like Pete and Delmar are so dumb, dumber than a bag of hammers, and Everett is so smart, and so he speaks like a lawyer, which is what it turns out that he is. Um, but and so you've got them, and they don't function the same way these three folks as Donnie and Walter function for the dude.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's similar-ish, you know. Pete is a pessimist, you know, and um, Delmer here is your paradigm of hope. I mean, consider the lilies of the goddamn field. Or yeah, Pete, look at me. Um, and they're there. They balance out Everett, and they help him through this journey with their um, either their bright outlook on everything, or their just you know their insistence that Everett like maybe shouldn't be listened to.
Yeah.
you know, and they're both right, I suppose. Um, although poor Pete, who had 2 weeks left on his sentence, is going to be in jail till he's 84.
Yeah. 1987.
I'm only going to be 82. God bless Delmer. Um, okay, so adventures and intimacy.
Yes, there's not a lot in this one, but there's
No,
enough to cut your teeth on. I was
like
thinking
a
about,
gopher.
huh?
Cut your teeth on like a gopher.
Exactly. First thing I noted was the baptism scene because you are going to
Mm,
be like holding people and guiding them into the water and then back out. And like, I don't know about you, but I really don't like people touching my face. So I'm going to need to know specifically, like, I'm going to need to see you wash your hands, or at least know that you wash those hands.
right.
We have hand sanitizer, great. And you're only touching my nose, great. Um, so little things like that. And also, again, knowing like how long are you holding me underwater? You know,
Right.
there's, I would say there's probably a lot more that a fight choreographer would do in this than an intimacy choreographer. But again, like this is one of those cases where like a consultant um,
Yeah.
is enough. Um, the sirens I think are some of the most interesting
Hmm.
intimacy that we see because they've got their wet clothing, it's semi-sheer, the stuff that they're doing with washing their clothing, but it's very dance like,
Yeah.
um there was one moment I thought they were trying a little too hard to be seductive, like, because honestly, they didn't have to try. Their clothing
Right.
is wet. They are attractive women. They're playing with wet clothing and the water around them. And the way some of their skirts are like hemmed around them is very like you see a bit of leg, and
Hmm.
that's enough. One of them, when she got up, she kind of like held up her skirt a little and flashed thigh. And I thought, you didn't even need to do that. Like, we get it. you're sirens. You don't have to try. The
Right.
power is in your voice,
Yeah.
which none of these women sang, sadly.
Mm.
But again, it's fine. And then they're moving their hands around their faces, doing different things with each man. The one with Delmar is like kind of squeezing his face a little bit, playing with him more because maybe they see him as the funnier one, so they only want to do funny, seductive things with him and not really lure him in. And like Pete is selling the comedy on his face, but I would say the hottest woman goes to him because he is the one that kind of led them there.
Mm.
So it's like he gets the winning one. I don't know. And then the other woman who goes to Everett is forcing alcohol down his
Getting drunk.
down his throat while running her hands through his hair and bracing his head, which
His hair. I
very
mean,
much a nice thing to do considering she is forcing alcohol or liquid down his throat. Like,
yeah.
help
But I
me.
mean, if you're going to entice Everett, it has to be around his hair.
Maybe, I don't know. Personally, I feel like my character choice in that moment would be like, ooh, touch me anywhere but the hair. I worked very hard on this.
Right.
It's a toss up.
I
But,
worked on my hair, and you hit it. You hit my hair.
you hit my hair. Yeah. I think that's it for the sirens. They, again, a lot of it was in they used their arms a lot, which I found very cool, the way they
Uh-huh.
walked. So, uh, how does seduction look for you in this scene and as a siren?
Yeah.
The last thing I noted was when, I forget when this was exactly, but Everett gets really, like, he pulls Penny aside to talk to her, and she does this thing where it's like, it's almost like she can't handle, like, she can't resist him, and she's
Uh-huh.
closing her eyes and like trying to stay zen, trying to keep a rational head, but she does this very subtle thing with the closed eyes and like maybe the slight inhale or turning her head away, like, oh, I can't say no to you, I've been through this before.
Mm-hmm.
um
7 different times,
Seven
obviously.
different, yeah, like, don't tempt me, Everett, damn it, he's bona fide, I got a good suitor.
He's a
um
suitor.
Very subtle, like you pull people in these moments and it's like the air is zapped away between them because of the sexual tension.
Mm-hmm.
So very subtle. I thought that moment was really cool.
Yep.
And you don't always need someone to choreograph that moment. Sometimes it can happen, like from direction or the actors if they, have a natural chemistry. But again, it's helpful
How
if
did you
they're having
feel
trouble finding
about
that.
the fight choreography?
Oh my god, the fight choreography was hysterical. Very much mimicking old timey ads. You know how you see that a lot of times?
This was like the old timey style of boxing. Like, this is how they, if you ever watch old boxing from like the beginning of the 1900s, that that's a lot of how whatever it's doing. I don't I don't have the first clue.
So I
He's left
think,
his face wide open.
I feel like that's a case where maybe, okay, I'm going to reference something. Have you ever seen the first Olympics?
No.
It's a very long movie, but it's good.
Okay.
It's it's not about the official first Olympics, but like the first one that restarted everything.
The modern
Um,
era one. Yeah.
Yes. And so the guys who were training are looking at old diagrams, of how these moves used to be done, and the way the runners are drawn, it's not a helpful first position.
Uh,
I may have this rehearsed, but or I may have this reversed. But then they realize if they start from the ground, like from a launch, that's way better than the way the drawings are. So I think this is an instance where people think fighting is must be like this, maybe how cartoons have been drawn or something else, and that's what they're basing their knowledge off of. It's not the
yeah,
best
sure.
for your body, but it is something that you have taken, much like people nowadays, you see something online and you think that must be the way, and it's not.
Nope. And this, it leaves you wide open in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
it's really funny though. And then he gets kicked out of the Woolworths. Stay out of the Woolworths.
How embarrassing.
I know, right? Um, any other intimacies in the movie? Anything between Pappy and his advisors? I mean, let me ask you this: do you think that he was going to pull their pants down and paddle their behinds, or do you think he ain't going to paddle it? He's going to kick it.
I think he's
Because
going to try and kick it.
I don't. I don't believe he's going to paddle it. I don't believe that's a proper characterization. But I believe it's more of a kicking situation. Yeah, I love those two advisors who are just constantly telling Pappy. They're just agreeing with him, but also just negging him the whole time.
I know.
Like, we got to get us some of that reform.
There's a lot of great relationships and bonding throughout this. Mostly, again, you have mostly, I would say, friendships or like close colleagues, in that instance with Pappy.
Mm-hmm.
But then with the men being chained up together, or then, like, while we're in a barn, we all have to, like, they had no problem sleeping side by side. There was
Mm-hmm.
like a little bit of distance because we have space now and we don't, but it's almost like they're used to being like next to each other. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty cool how they keep that closeness. Maybe because again, they have been chained up together so long.
Yeah, yeah. It's There's this other thing that they do, and I didn't get a chance to go back and look at it a lot, but I noticed it on this watch. There are, I'm going to say, at least half a dozen shots where it's just the three of their heads
Mm-hmm.
looking at something that's happening, like hiding in the
Mm-hmm.
bushes, like various states of like dishevelment or dirtiness, but just all three together. And I was fascinated by the choice to do that. Because I don't know what it means or what they're trying to do with that shot, but the fact that they're using it repeatedly, um, to show these three guys on this journey together, I
Mm-hmm.
really like the visual of that.
Maybe they're all supposed to represent, what is it, the ego, the id, and
The super ego.
the super ego. I don't know. Maybe they're also
Yeah,
supposed to represent one portion of one man's personality.
maybe. Yeah, maybe. I hadn't thought about that. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a good idea. That's an interesting thought we may have to dig into at some point.
One shot that particularly stood out to me was when they're at the nooses
Uh huh.
niece. I should. I'm sorry.
I don't think so,
Um,
but
like, you have Everett on his knees, and then you have Delmar, who's just naturally shorter than Pete, and they're all kind of like in this graph, this,
oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, natural incline. It's very interesting. Um, I also completely forgot that like my telecom class showed us uh when teaching us about oh god, what am I'm blanking on the name. Oh god. When you're shooting a film, the shot list, but then you have like all the boxes drawn out of like what you want.
Storyboard.
Storyboard, thank you. Well, this is why I have a minor in telecom and have not used it.
I
But
Me too.
when they were
Um,
when they were teaching us about the storyboard, they showed us images from this film, so I was seeing them in my mind
yeah,
as I
yeah,
watched this.
yeah. I think that they storyboard the shit out of their stuff. Like I think
I think
there's
that's a
a
great idea.
precision. I do too. I
Yeah.
think that like they know what they want to see, and this was shot by Roger Deakins, who is a DP they've worked with a bunch, who is just fucking amazing. Like the way he shoots a movie, and there's like he works so well with them, and he's done other stuff that's not with them. Um,
Mhm.
but man, like You get the Coen brothers and Roger Deakins together, you know it's going to look gorgeous. And they also did this thing with this movie where they did that color treatment of
Uh-huh.
the whole movie. Did you ever see that side by side? Like there's you can find clips of it. I think they may have
No.
done like a mini. They did like a mini documentary about it. You can probably find it on YouTube, where it'll like it shows it to you, and then it like will do a wipe across that, and then it takes it to the color palette of this
Wow.
movie, and it's gorgeous what they did with this. I mean, just they do so much in this movie with the visuals and the sound of it to put you in a place
Mm-hmm.
and in a time, and it is like it locks the story in so firmly. Like there's no doubt when you turn this movie on, even if you don't see a character on screen, you know what you're watching. You know exactly what movie this is.
Yeah.
Because there just isn't anything like it. And it is I don't know, I think it's glorious. And I do think this is one I recommend you watch about 6 times. You know,
Oh,
like the
okay.
more you I feel this way about all the Coen Brothers movies, but the more you watch it, the more you appreciate what you're seeing, and the funnier things like the the paddling and kicking conversation. I don't think struck me as super funny before this viewing, but I laughed so hard. Which I think this is more of a kicking situation. Um, just and I love the when his son recommends that they get a smaller midget, and he's like, "We can't, we can't get a little fella, no matter how stumpy."
Oh my God.
The use of the word "stumpy" in that circumstance just makes me laugh really hard. Um, and it's just stuff that, like, the thing that hits you the first time will still hit you, but then you'll catch all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, go for Everett. It's just this little stuff that keeps happening and it's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I watch it 3 or 4 more times and see if you just don't love it by the end. Like
Okay.
it makes your heart big. Um, all right, let's run through the hills and the dales and the valleys and go to Needle Drop Forest. Um, Needle Drop Forest is the whole goddamn soundtrack.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like
It's so good.
it is, and it's and I don't know if I don't know if you're aware because you were in 6th grade or whatever. How big this album got? How big this soundtrack got?
I had no idea
It would.
until
Did you see it afterwards? It is. It was. Um. So it sold over 5 million copies in 2001. This album of old timey songs of Depression era, some hymns, some of them. Uh. The Big Rock Candy Mountain, which is the song
Yeah.
playing um over the
Opening
opening
credits.
credits, is like is it's like a hobo dream sequence. Like it's like if you're a hobo and you're trying to reach the Big Rock Candy Mountain where, the railroad bulls are blind and there's a lake full of stew and of whiskey too, and you can paddle all around them in a big canoe. Like it's just they hung the jerk who invented work. It is like it's such a funny little song, but it's also like, oh, that does sound nice. If I could just live in a place with a big lake of stew, and I could just ladle out some stew and
Right.
maybe ladle out a whiskey, that sounds heavenly. Um,
It had
but
me
yeah, this
it had me rethinking like, oh, maybe I like bluegrass.
I love the music from this, and I'm not a country music fan,
I'm not either.
but boy, I loved this. Like, yeah, I would sing this forever and ever and ever. I had this on CD. Um, it again, like I said, it sold 5 million copies. There was a documentary about it, 3 follow-up albums, multiple tours. I mean,
Wow.
it was, and it won country music awards for album of the year and single of the year for Man of Constant Sorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, this thing was And it also won 5 Grammys, including Album of the Year, and hit #1 on the Billboard charts.
That's
Um,
crazy.
like it's amazing how we were talking about Cruel Intentions and how the soundtrack was better than the movie. I don't think the soundtrack is better than the movie because I think this movie is so great.
Yeah.
But the soundtrack was more popular than the movie. Like it
Well,
outperformed.
what did we do last week? Oh, it was Sideways. And the album for that was also a big deal because the band on that went on tour.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's I mean when you find the music that is right for the thing you're doing, whoo, that's somebody good picking and a singing.
I was singing
So
along at some parts.
hell yeah, you were. I ain't here to sing into a can, you dumb cracker.
I love that.
I fucking love this movie. All right, what else time? Um, is this anyone's defining role?
For me, it would be Delmar's defining role. I don't. Wait. No, that's not true. I know him from Holes. Never mind. I don't know if it's anyone's
Oh,
defining
Tim Blake
role.
Nelson?
Yeah.
I do think it's Tim Blake Nelson's defining role, but it's the first time I ever experienced him in anything, and he steals this movie the first time you watch it.
His
Like he is,
facial expressions just.
his face and his lines are so. I'm with you, fellers. I mean, he's so blissfully stupid. Of course it is, Pete. Look at him. Um, we thought you was a toad. Like he steals this movie. And then the more you watch it, the more you're seeing what John Turturro is doing, and I mean George Clooney. Here's the thing about this movie. For me, George Clooney was TV actor guy, right?
Mhm.
Like he was Dr. Doug Ross. He was on Facts of Life before that. Like he was on a bunch of stuff that just never hit. And then ER is massive. And then he kills Batman, which like he feels bad about, but like he's like the movie was terrible. Um, and so I'm like, it's late '90s, and I'm like, I'm not sure George Clooney's any good, and
Mm.
like I don't think I had seen Out of Sight yet, which if you haven't seen, I recommend him and Jennifer Lopez. It's a Steven Soderbergh movie. It's really good. Um,
Oh.
but you're like, I don't know if I'd seen that yet. But this movie comes out, and I've been in the bag for the Coen brothers since '91. Like, since probably around Hudsucker Proxy, which I think was '93, was when I was like, holy shit, these guys. And like it was Hudsucker Proxy, Fargo, which was, I mean, nominated for Best Picture. Frances McDormand is amazing. Then it
Hmm.
was The Big Lebowski, and then it was this. And so I'm in. And also, I already loved Raising Arizona. I hadn't seen stuff like Barton Fink yet, or Miller's Crossing, which both are amazing. But by the time this comes out, I'm in the bag. I'm all in for the Coen brothers. And then they cast George Clooney in this movie, and I'm like, really? I don't know if he's any good. And this movie did more to change my opinion of any one actor than any movie in the history of mankind. Because I walked out of this movie going, well, George Clooney's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I'll take anything he wants to get involved in because that was great.
Agreed.
And so this is not his defining role, I don't think.
It could be
But
up there.
I don't know what's more defining for him than Ulysses Everett McGill. I mean, Danny Ocean is like, those movies are great. They're really fun.
True.
But like those are capers, and he's like, that's just him fucking hanging out with Brad Pitt. Like those movies are just like, you just want to watch those movies to watch the star wattage on the screen just jump at your
Yeah.
face. It's not about that character so much. So this could be it for George Clooney for me. but it is certainly the movie that cemented him as someone that I would just go, oh, that guy. He
Yeah.
got chopped, you know, um, which is pretty impressive. I mean, as big as he was as Doug Ross on like the biggest show on TV, that wasn't named Friends or Seinfeld or whatever, but I don't know, just he fucking nails it in this so hard.
Sadly, he
Turturro,
could
it's
not
not.
sing.
No, but it's okay. Like I think the only one who does is Tim Blake Nelson sings in the jailhouse now.
Oh,
But I
okay.
think all the rest of it is other musicians,
Yeah.
doing the songs. He does a good job of lip syncing "Man of Constant Sorrow," though.
They all did a really good job of lip syncing. I was like, you know what? I can't be mad because some singers got some work, and you all did a great job of lip syncing.
And when he comes into the microphone to hit that ha,
Mhm.
you're just like, whoa! Like you just blow the doors out of the place. You're like, I'm in for this song. Whatever this song is, I'm gonna listen.
Yeah.
And then the beard. Um, yeah, I fucking love it. And did we talk about Pappy O'Daniel dancing yet?
We did.
Because when he gets up on the stage and does his little fat guy dance, it's so glorious. I think he finally got himself some of that reform. What is the EST for you?
This is the yellowest movie I've ever seen.
It is pretty yellow. Yeah.
And I liked it.
Um, it's
I
great.
immediately noticed it. No, it's really great. And then when I was reading about it, because I thought, what does this mean? And then I went, oh, it's like one of the first, color. Wait, what is it? Color swapping, color coding.
I don't know. I don't know what the term is. Color coding, color correction. I'm not sure what the official
One of those
word is for.
things. It was one of the first
Yeah.
that did it. So I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah. For me, this is the old timeyest movie.
Oh, nice.
I mean that like one, the color palette, the look of it, but just the music and the language of like the rednecks, and just and the Pappy and his advisors sitting up on the veranda, like fanning themselves with their hats and drinking their iced tea
Mhm.
and discussing the stumpiness of the midget they're not allowed to get. Um,
Ugh.
it's just I fucking love this movie so much. Um, but I think that we have once again proven my theory that everything comes back to Aaron Spelling.
Even a brother, where art thou?
Even Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which is pretty amazing. Um, so we're once again in a situation. It is really fun to say situation like that. By the way, I
Situation.
recommend you do it as situation as much as possible. Um, we're once again in an ass kicking situation where we have not decided what we're going to watch next week. So on Wednesday, you can join us for season 3, episode 20, Parental Guidance Recommended. But do you have thoughts yet about what we're going to do? Because I haven't watched it yet, so there's nothing fresh in my head. So like,
I'm trying to remember.
what? So Iris comes back. There's
Uh-huh.
she fucking just gives him the money. God damn Iris. What else happens in this movie or in this episode besides Iris being
Oh,
just stellar?
Brenda's getting over the breakup the whole time. So
Okay, watch a breakup movie.
love
You have any
those.
good breakup
Breakup.
movies?
Oh man, do I? Fortunately, it's been a while, so I don't have them
Since you've
on
wallowed
since I've listen, I wallow all the time. It's been a while since I've had to wallow about heartbreak.
about
Um,
that, got you.
let's see. I mean, I guess they're good wallow movies
Ooh,
because you really will be wallowing, but
have you seen the movie High Fidelity?
I have. I've never been able to get into it.
Okay, we
But
don't have to.
I
Oh,
could watch.
what about Swingers?
Oh, I mean, what a great excuse. I've never seen Swingers, and I would much rather watch that than High Fidelity.
Okay, Yeah, and I know there's spelling connection. I even know who it is. It's probably multiple spelling connections in there, but I do know one of them. All right, that's going to be fun. I haven't watched Swingers in a long time. Um, and for anyone who has seen Swingers, you know what I'm going to say here, or you know what I'm talking about when I say that this movie features the single most uncomfortable scene I've ever sat through, and it
Oh
makes me
no.
uncomfortable. Oh, but it's wonderful. But it is such a fucking cringe the whole time. And it makes me cringe now just thinking about it. And I know I'm going to have trouble watching it because it's so cringy. And I've seen this movie like 100 times. Um, all right, that's fun. I'm excited to watch Swingers.
Thanks for the
Because we
content
just talked about
warning.
it. Well, I don't think it'll bother you the way that it bothers. Like, it's just, oh man, it's cringy. Um, but we just talked about this last week when we were watching Sideways, which is
Mm-hmm.
also a breakup movie, as it turns out. So, um, yeah, all right. So Swingers next week, Cheese Meisters. That's gonna be fun. That's a fun movie. Vegas, baby, Vegas. All right. Uh, so until then, cheers.
Cheers.